Hi everyone, Janie here and welcome to my channel. If you're watching this between April 3rd and April 10th of 2021 for the Serendipity Digital Craft Hop sponsored by Tailor Made Cards for You, you're going to find all the information you need below in the description box as well as a link to the next person in the lineup at the very top. Today I'm going to be using this beautiful digital kit from Tailor Made Cards for You called Mrs. Darcy, and I have a link to this kit below in the description box. For my project today, I'm going to be upcycling this box, and it has a nice little magnetic closure here. And I'm also going to be making a little accordion style or concertina style mini album to go inside of this. So what I've done is I've printed out some of the papers from the kit that I'm going to be using today. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is that I love digital, papers or digital kits because I can print things out whatever size I need. I can crop things out and just print what I need. There are so many options. And so, for example, I needed these pages to fit this box. So I was able to crop each page out separately and then print it out to the size that I need. And I did the same thing with these. I'm going to need this size for the mini album that I'm going to be doing. And then this page with the cutouts on it, I just printed it out the way that it was. So to get started, I am going to go cut these out and I'll be back. Okay, I've cut out everything that I'm going to be using. And for this one, I used a stitched oval die to cut her out. And for this one, it fit perfectly on this stitched tag die, so I really love that. And I even have a little pink bow to go on the top of that. And I have this little pocket that I'll be using with the mini album. I used some papers from my stash that I thought looked really good with this. And, on this, I used liquid glass on top of those flowers to just give it some dimension and make them stand out. And I really love the way that came out. I know recently I used Nuvo crystal drops to get that same effect on something, and I didn't like the way it turned out. So I am back to using my liquid glass for that. And next I'm going to be using this frayed burlap distress ink, and I'm going to be inking the edges of everything. Absolutely everything will get inked edges. And then on this piece, I'm going to be using my edge distresser, and I'm going to be distressing 3 of these edges as well as inking them. And this is the edge distresser that I have. You can use scissors or whatever edge distresser you might have. But I am ready to get started on this, and when I'm done, I'm going to come back and we are going to start decorating that box. I thought I would show how I distress the edges for those of you who weren't sure what I was talking about. It gives a nice rough edge, and then I just inked over that. And for the Serendipity label, after I inked the edges, I decided to heat emboss it with super thick clear embossing powder. It gives the same look as using liquid glass, but I don't have to wait for it to dry. I really love the glossy dimensional look that it gives. So here you see that I'm going to use ribbon instead of cardstock, and the reason for that is the cardstock seemed to affect the strength of the magnets, and well, you're going to see later that the ribbon did not work as well either, and I end up having to add additional magnets after all. Sometimes things just don't go as planned. So the theme today is serendipity, and the definition of serendipity is the occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. So while you watch me decorate this box, I am going to tell you a true serendipitous story about me and my husband. So for 25 years, I ran a nonprofit organization, and there came a time when I needed to interview a gentleman. And to my complete and utter surprise, since I wasn't looking for a relationship, I fell in love with this man during that interview. Of course, I didn't tell him that. No matter how flustered I was, I kept the interview completely professional. But he completely stole my heart. And I saw him again 2 months later, and again it was professionally, but because it was near Christmas, I was able to give him a Christmas hug. But I never told him how I felt, and I never stopped thinking about him. And not long after that, I moved several hours away. I was still running the nonprofit organization, but for the most part, I could do that from home and then travel when I needed to. But I never stopped thinking about this man, and I never stopped loving him, even though I really didn't know him. So 2 long years later, his name came across my desk again, and when I called him, all of those feelings came rushing back so strong. Well, it just happened to turn out that my best friend was his parents' social worker. She really liked the family, and she told me that if I didn't ask this man on a date, that she would ask him for me, and that would have been horribly embarrassing. So I got up the nerve to call him, and I let him know that I was going to be in his area on business, and I asked if he would like to have a business dinner with me, and guess what? He said yes. I was such a nervous wreck waiting for him to arrive and wondering how I was going to hide my feelings. But to my surprise, when he arrived to pick me up, he informed me that this was no longer going to be a business dinner, but in fact was going to be our first date. Well, you can only imagine how happy that made me. We went to dinner and we sat there and we talked until they kicked us out. Seriously, they had been vacuuming around us and cleaning around us and finally just had to ask us to leave. Of course, I still hadn't told him that I love him, but he wanted to see me the next day before my long drive home, and as I was leaving, he told me that he loved me. Oh my gosh, I almost burst into tears right then and there as I told him I love him too. But I saved the tears of happiness for the drive home. That next week was the longest week ever, but I saw him again the following weekend, and he asked me to marry him. And we were married 6 weeks from our first date. So you could say that when I met him, that was serendipity. But what I think is more serendipitous was him coming back into my life 2 years later and marrying me. Well, that was many years ago, and we are still madly in love. We are true soulmates, and that is my serendipitous love story for you. Well, I hope you enjoyed my story. And now we are approaching the part where I ended up having to add magnets after all. So I have these tiny magnets that I usually use for closures on my mini albums, and I decided to use those. They worked perfectly with the magnets that are already there, so all I had to do was glue them to the top flap, and I did that with my Beacon Power Tack, and then I used a rubber band to hold everything closed while the glue dried. And now I can get back to gluing everything on the box and making it beautiful. How would you like to listen to a little music while I do that? Okay, I'm going to set that aside to dry and start working on the little accordion miniature mini album to go in the box. And I cut a piece of cardstock 5 inches by 12 inches and scored it at 3 inches, 6 inches, and 9 inches. Next, I just folded it back and forth in accordion style or concertina style. And now it's ready to start gluing the papers in, but first I'm going to be putting this pocket together, and then once that is done, I'm going to start gluing the papers in and attaching this little pocket. You can actually add more pages to a mini album like this just by adhering another strip of folded cardstock, or two if you'd like. But I'm going to keep this one small, and there's room to add plenty of pictures or other ephemera and memorabilia. I'm actually making this for myself, and it's going to have pictures of me and my husband in it. And now I'm going to be gluing the pocket to the front of the mini album, and it is the perfect place to put more pictures or ephemera or memorabilia. And I am actually going to be putting a tag in there with the definition of, you guessed it, serendipity. And here's the finished box and mini album, and I absolutely love the way it all came together, and I hope you like it too. And you know what? I also absolutely love the Mrs. Darcy digital kit from Tailor Made Cards for You, and I'm going to have a link below in the description box to that kit, as well as to Tailor Made Cards for You, so you can see more of the beautiful kits she has in her shop. And if you'd like to see more Trash to Treasure projects, you'll find them in my Upcycling Recycling playlist. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my video. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate all of you so much. Happy crafting, everyone. Bye-bye. If you like this video, I hope you give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, I hope you consider that too. And if you do, be sure to click the little bell next to the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos or giveaways. And I hope you stop by Crafters Castle on Facebook and also Crafters Castle Challenge blog to enter your creations.